Before doing so, he decides to call the number on the business card. The man on the other end orders him to get on the plane and forget about the game. However, Gi-hun refuses, promising instead to stop the game. He turns around and realizes there's a tracker implanted in his body. As he leaves the airport, the front man calls him and warns that he's making a big mistake he'll regret. Gi-hun swears to find the front man. Gi-hun takes a cab to a shop where he buys a stationery knife. Then he enters a public restroom, locates the tracker behind his ear, and removes it. By the way, it looks like the actor has been working out since the first season. Nice improvement. In the next scene, we see Detective Jun-ho in a hospital. He regains consciousness after being unconscious for several days. His mother is overjoyed to see him awake and recovering. The story jumps ahead 2 years. Jun-ho stops a scooter rider for driving without a helmet. While issuing a fine of 20,000 won, the rider's girlfriend tries to flirt with Jun-ho to avoid the ticket.
Hey, sexy, is it cool if I post this? What's your Insta?
Despite her efforts, the guy takes the fine, leaves her behind, and drives away alone. Later, Jun-ho's chief invites him to lunch.
So what, you transfer here just so you can get treated like shit?
During their meal, the chief asks Jun-ho to return to the major crimes unit. However, Jun-ho is still angry at him for not believing his story about the Squid Game. Without solid evidence, only the bullet lodged in his shoulder, Jun-ho's claims were dismissed. He lost all his photos and videos when his phone sank into the sea.
And that's after you took a gun without permission and decided to go rogue. A couple days later, they find you half dead. But after they told us that you were awake, there was all this fuss about firing you, and I kept you on.
Sir, I salute you. I'm in your debt. You will forever be a hero to me. Thank you.
You sarcastic little shit.
The chief asks if Jun-ho remembers what the shooter looked like. Not wanting to betray his brother, Jun-ho lies and says
no.
Later that evening, a young couple searches for a motel to spend the night. They end up at an abandoned motel, but an argument quickly breaks out. The girl suggests going to a different place that she thinks would be more fun, which angers her boyfriend.
And how do you know that? Who told you?
Do you have to ask? I just know, okay?
Oh, yeah? So you just happen to be a motel expert.
You said you liked that I knew everything.
As they leave, we see Gi-hun watching them through surveillance cameras. It's revealed that he has been living in this abandoned motel, hiding from society. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, but no one appears on the cameras. Alarmed, Gi-hun grabs his gun and cautiously answers the door. A stranger slips a business card under the door. Gi-hun opens it, pointing his gun, but standing there is the front man himself. The front man shows him the heads of his friends, Sang-woo and Se-byuk, but it's all a nightmare. The doorbell rings again, and Gi-hun checks the cameras to see his creditor from the first season. Surprisingly, the man now works for Gi-hun, helping him track down the salesman who recruits people to play the game.
Let's see, we checked all the subway stations on lines 1 through 4.
Gi-hun instructs him to hire more people for the search and hands him a bag full of money to fund the operation. He explains that 3 years ago, he was recruited around this time of year, which means the games are likely about to start again.
Listen, I swear, I'll find him this year.
The man gets into his van and orders his crew to stay on high alert, explaining they'll need all hands on deck. Some of his men argue that the whole idea sounds far-fetched, but the loan shark points out that many of his debtors have mysteriously vanished over the past few years. If they don't figure out what's happening, his business will suffer.
It's only thanks to Song Gi-young coming to me when he did, paying off his debt, and turning around and hiring me, that I could even pay any of you, or keep the business going.
To motivate his team, the loan shark declares that Gi-hun will pay them 1 billion won if they find the Dachi man. This massive reward quickly changes their tune, and they begin to take the task seriously.
$1 billion? That's right, $1 billion. What? Huh? Now you want to believe his story?
After all, money has a way of making even the most skeptical people believe. The next morning, Jun-ho continues his search. He has been working with the captain of a fishing boat to locate the mysterious island connected to the games. They've already searched nearly all the islands in the area, and today they plan to check a few more. During their conversation, it's revealed that this very captain was the one who rescued Jun-ho after he was shot. Meanwhile, the loan shark's new recruits receive detailed instructions about their target. A well-dressed man in a suit, carrying a briefcase full of cash and dachi cards. The boss promises a 500 million won bonus to anyone who finds him. The gang spreads out to subway stations, sending regular reports to Gi-hun's phone. However, their behavior attracts too much attention, as they question passers-by about the Dachi man, even reenacting how he recruits players and inspecting the briefcases of every man in a suit. While this unfolds, Jun-ho dives near one of the islands but finds nothing. It turns out to be another dead end, and he and the captain head back to Seoul. Day after day, Gi-hun and Jun-ho continue their searches, growing more frustrated with each passing day. Eventually, Jun-ho considers giving up. He feels like he's wasting the captain's time, and to make matters worse, he doesn't even have the money to pay him back. As the loan shark and his henchmen discuss their progress, they finally spot the Dakji man playing the game with someone. They immediately inform Gi-hun, who orders them to tail the man while he rushes to the location. The new recruit who receives the business card stares at the number, debating his next move. His phone buzzes. It's a call from his pregnant girlfriend, Jun-hee, who is at a maternity clinic. He doesn't answer. As the scene shifts, we see that Jun-hee also has the same business card. Moments later, she makes a shocking decision. She leaves the clinic, skipping her doctor's appointment to join the game.
Kim Jun-hee?
Meanwhile, the Dakji man buys an enormous amount of bread and scratch-off lottery tickets. On his way back, the loan sharks tail him, reporting his every move to Gi-hun. The Dakji man approaches a homeless man sleeping in a park, offering him a choice between a piece of bread and a lottery scratcher. He explains that the man can only pick one. The homeless man chooses the scratcher and eagerly scratches it, only to find there's no prize.
Bad luck.
Unfazed, the Dakji man moves on to another homeless person, repeating the same offer. Each time, the homeless individuals choose the scratcher, only to stay empty-handed. Eventually, the Dakji man dumps the remaining bread from his bags onto the ground.
Sir, I already gave you a choice, and you went with the other option.
And begins stomping on it in a fit of rage. The homeless onlookers watch in a mix of envy and shock. After venting his anger, he breathes a sigh of relief, smiling as though a burden has been lifted. And I think this guy is struggling with deep-seated mental issues. Meanwhile, Gi-hun is pulled over for speeding by a police car. It turns out to be Jun-ho and his younger partner. Jun-ho, trying to teach his partner how to handle civilians, instructs him to take care of the situation. The Dakji man hails a cab and leaves, forcing the loan sharks to follow him in another taxi. They relay his new location to Gi-hun. After receiving a ticket, Gi-hun quickly drives off. Suspicious, Jun-ho checks his partner's phone and discovers the driver was Gi-hun.
Song-gi-un, I think you can help me. I'm looking for my brother. I need to get him back.
Why would you think that I would be useful to you or anybody else?
While waiting for Gi-hun to arrive, the loan sharks decide to confront the Dakji man themselves. However, he easily overpowers and knocks them out. Back at the station, Jun-ho digs into Gi-hun's background using the police database. He discovers that Gi-hun's car is registered to a company called Sunshine Capital and tracks down the company's address. Gi-hun arrives at the meeting place, but finds his men missing. The Dakji man quietly observes as Gi-hun searches the area. A little later, the Dakji man offers the captured loan sharks a highly entertaining game, rock, paper, scissors, where the loser must play Russian roulette.
The odds that you'll die are 1 in 6. Survival odds are 5 in 6.
His behavior clearly reveals deep mental instability. He starts the game, forcing the loan sharks to play. The loser is made to face the gun. As the Dakji man pulls the trigger, the chamber is empty, so the game continues. By the way, when the Dakji man spins the cylinder, we can see that the director uses blanks with dents in the primers.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
The loan sharks are trembling with fear. To escalate the tension, the Dakji man loads 4 bullets into the revolver, leaving only 1 chamber empty. Shaken, the loan sharks are forced to continue. The boss, realizing the danger, breaks the rules of the game to protect his man and sacrifices himself.
Disqualified.
The Dakji man declares him disqualified and coldly shoots him in the head. Turning to the remaining loan shark, he congratulates him and offers to finally talk. Meanwhile, Jun-ho arrives at the address, which turns out to be the loan shark's warehouse. Sneaking inside, he discovers a mannequin dressed in a suit with a business card pinned to it. As he searches, one of the warehouse staff enters, speaking on the phone. Jun-ho overhears him explaining where their boss last saw the Dakji man and ordering the team to grab weapons and assemble at the location. After the staff member leaves, Jun-ho continues his search and finds documents revealing the address of the motel where Gi-hun has been hiding. A little later, Gi-hun returns to the motel and notices that the sign outside is now lit. Cautiously entering his room, he finds the Dakji man waiting for him.
Look at all this. You've been trying so hard to find me.
Yeah, well, I wanted to thank you
Oh yeah? For what?
for inviting me to join the game.
The Dakji man explains that he's merely a messenger who delivers invitations. Gi-hun demands to meet his employer, but the Dakji man offers instead to pass along his message.
It isn't anything I could tell some worthless little underling.
During their conversation, the Dakji man reveals his backstory. As a younger man, he worked in the games as a staff member with a circle mask tasked with incinerating eliminated players.
These things aren't human. They're just trash. Useless. They have no purpose in this world. That's what I kept telling myself for years, and I worked hard.
He excelled in his duties and was eventually promoted given a gun and a sense of power.
It was like someone had finally acknowledged my existence.
One day, he was ordered to kill a player who had lost a game. The man seemed familiar. It turned out to be his father. Despite his shock, the Dakshi man killed him.
I shot him, bang, right in the middle of his forehead. That's when I knew.
At that moment, he realized he was perfectly suited for the job. As I said, there's clearly something wrong with this guy. Gi-hun coldly tells the Dakshi man that he's nothing more than a loyal dog serving his employers. Meanwhile, Junho arrives at the motel and parks his car outside, observing from a distance.
You think just because you won the game, you're suddenly special now? Is that what you believe?
The Dakshi man eventually challenges Gi-hun to a game of Russian roulette. To make the game more thrilling, he proposes pulling the trigger without spinning the cylinder after each round, ensuring the bullet will fire within 6 attempts. Gi-hun agrees and the game begins. Gi-hun takes the first turn, an empty chamber. Then it's the Dakshi man's turn, another empty chamber. They each take another turn, leaving only 2 chambers remaining, with a 50-50 chance of firing the bullet. The Dakshi man speculates that Gi-hun might be considering pointing the gun at him and pulling the trigger to end it.
Who cares what the rules are? I'm just gonna aim at this asshole, pull the trigger a couple of times, and blow his ugly face off. If you want to meet the person you were talking about earlier, the key's here in my pocket. All you have to do is shoot me with that gun and then it's yours. If you do, though, you'll have to admit one thing to me. You're trash and just as worthless as everyone else. And you only made it out of the dumpster because you got lucky.
But Gi-hun continues playing by the rules. When Gi-hun pulls the trigger, the revolver clicks. Another empty chamber. He has won the game. Gi-hun hands the revolver back to the Dakshi man, who realizes the gravity of his situation. Gi-hun echoes the man's earlier words.
Who cares about rules? The only thing you'd have to do now is pull that trigger once, and you could kill me right here. But you'd have to admit one thing to me. All you do is put your little mask on and do whatever Master tells you to. Roll over, heel, and wag your tail, because you're their dog.
Despite this, the Dakshi man chooses to finish the game with honor, committing the unthinkable. Junho hears the gunshot and rushes into the motel. As Junho searches the motel, Gi-hun retrieves a business card from the Dakshi man's pocket. Meanwhile, Junho discovers one of the loan sharks tied up in another room. The man tells Junho that Gi-hun is in room 410. Junho storms into the room and prepares to arrest Gi-hun for suspected murder. However, the loan shark knocks Junho out with a fire extinguisher. He explains to Gi-hun that they've never met in person, but he worked for him in the search for the Dakshi man. His name is Woo-sok, and he respects Gi-hun because his late boss always spoke highly of him.
But the boss told me how much he trusted you. You were a stand-up guy who voluntarily paid his debts.
While Woo-sok mourns his boss, Gi-hun examines the business card, which leads to an address for a club. While Woo-sok cleans up the crime scene, Gi-hun handcuffs Junho to a bath mixer. Gi-hun recalls Junho visiting his house before the games began. Junho admits that he infiltrated the island and even questioned Gi-hun about his brother after the infamous nighttime fight.
Player 456. Is there a man named Hwang In-ho here?
We don't use our names in this place.
That was me. Hwang In-ho's my older brother.
Gi-hun clarifies that he didn't kill the Dakshi man,
And I wasn't the one who fired the gun. We played a game and he just happened to lose.
explaining that he was merely a recruiter for the games. Gi-hun tells Junho that he wants to stop the games and track down the man who operated them under Oil-nam. Junho mentions that all the guards referred to this man as the front man. However, Junho lies, claiming that he never saw the front man's face.
You know what he looks like?
No, he always wore a black mask under a hood.
Gi-hun admits he doesn't want to kill the front man. His ultimate goal is to stop Il-mam's associates, the ones for whom the games were organized. Junho reveals they're known as the VIPs, and that he saw one of them. Junho offers his help, and Gi-hun reluctantly accepts him into the team. Gi-hun leads them to another room where he keeps his cash, explaining that he intends to use it to fight back. However, Junho and Woo-seok make it clear they're not doing this for the money.
I don't give a shit. I'm not doing this for the money.
No, and neither am I. That psycho killed the boss and had me watch it. Boss Kim was like a brother. He officiated my wedding.
Junho warns that the island is heavily guarded with armed troops, so they'll need more weapons. Gi-hun shows them his hidden arsenal, a room filled with rifles and pistols. He even has a shooting range set up in the motel to test the weapons. Gi-hun instructs them to recruit more men for the assault and suggests that Junho quit his day job to focus entirely on the mission. The scene shifts to a girl sleeping in her car in a parking lot near an amusement park. A security guard knocks on her window and asks what she's doing there. He advises advises her to find another place to park next time before leaving her alone. The girl works as a mascot at an amusement park. During her shift, she approaches a little girl and gives her a lollipop candy. During a break, the same little girl sneaks into the staff room, forcing the mascots to quickly put their mask back on. She shows the bunny mascot her drawing and notices scars on the bunny's wrists. After her father took her away, one of the mascot actors mentions that the girl is the daughter of a caricature artist and has blood cancer. She urgently needs a bone marrow transplant, but finding a match is incredibly difficult. These words deeply affect the mascot girl. Later that evening, Gi-hun watches Sang-woo's mother from a distance. She is now raising Se-byuk's younger brother, Chum. The boy calls her grandma. Gi-hun feels relieved that the boy is receiving proper care. Gi-hun visits the broker who had been helping Se-byuk try to bring her mother from North Korea to the south. The broker explains that Se-byuk's mother was recently released from prison, where there had been a tuberculosis outbreak. Moving her now is risky.
Once we know she's recovered, we go.
Gi-hun offers to pay extra to expedite the process, but the broker refuses.
Last time you gave me more than enough money.
Saying he owes Se-byuk and will handle it without additional money.
Damn it.
I trusted you and brought my money here like you told me. That money's something I risked my own life to get.
I kind of owe this to Se-byuk after all.
Gi-hun provides the address of Sang-woo's mother, where Se-byuk's brother is staying, in case he cannot contact Gi-hun directly. After Gi-hun leaves, the mascot girl visits the broker.
Oh, shit. You again?
Her name is No-yul, and she is searching for her daughter in North Korea. No-yul reveals that her daughter was only a year old when she fled to South Korea after shooting a superior officer. Her daughter was left behind with no parents.
I mean, the baby was 1 year old. How could she survive in North Korea without her parents?
She hands the broker a stack of cash, but he refuses, explaining that he has done everything he can to find her daughter, but has found no leads. He gently suggests that she should try to move on and forget.
It's awful, I know. Telling you to forget about your kid, but you really should. It's the only thing you can do now.
Distraught, No-yul returns to her van in the parking lot and breaks down in tears as she looks at a family photo of herself, her daughter, and her husband. In an attempt to numb her emotional pain, she swallows sedatives with beer. Suddenly, a stranger approaches, silently hands her a business card, and walks away without saying a word. The next morning, Jun-ho visits his sister-in-law's grave. While there, he talks on the phone with his mother. She tells him that if his brother, In-ho, is still alive, he will undoubtedly visit his wife's grave to leave flowers. Later that evening, Jun-ho's mother expresses her concerns about In-ho.
There was no sign of him?
No.
She admits she feels guilty for favoring Jun-ho over him, because In-ho is her stepson. She believes In-ho might still resent her for not helping him when his wife was ill.
He gave you one of his kidneys in order to save your life. Then when your sister-in-law lay there in the hospital suffering and dying, I would have given anything to save her, even selling off all my organs.
This drove In-ho to take bribes to save his wife, a crime he later paid for. Meanwhile, the little girl returns to the amusement park, but this time the bunny mascot ignores her and walks away without giving her a candy. It's revealed that No-yul has quit her job and a colleague has taken over her costume. As No-yul leaves, she notices an ambulance and paramedics taking the little girl away. After the ambulance drives off, she picks up the girl's hat, which was left on the ground. No-yul goes to the hospital where the little girl has been taken and eavesdrops on a conversation between the girl's father and a doctor. As expected, the father desperately needs money for his daughter's treatment. No-yul sneaks into the girl's ward, holds her hand, and is struck by how much the girl reminds her of her own daughter. She leaves the girl's hat and quietly walks out. Later, No-yul dials the number on the business card. A man answers and provides her with an address. Back at the motel, a dentist removes one of Gi-hun's teeth and replaces it with a fake tooth containing a built-in tracker. Woo-suk introduces a group of new recruits to Gi-hun. All of them are former military personnel, including ex-Marines, Special Forces, and members of the underwater demolition team. They plan to ambush the club mentioned on the Dachi man's business card. Gi-hun and Woo-suk will enter the club while the others wait outside. Before leaving, Gi-hun calls his daughter, but loses the courage to speak when she answers the phone. Gi-hun and his team arrive at the club during the Halloween party. Woo-suk buys a mask from a nearby stall to blend in, and they both enter while Jun-ho waits outside in the car. Jun-ho notices staff in pink jumpsuits heading into the club.
They're in pink jumpsuits, just like on the island.
He follows them, threatening a guard with his gun to gain entry. Inside, the staff approaches Gi-hun and leads him away. Another staff member uses a taser to knock out Woo-suk while Jun-ho unsuccessfully searches for them. Jun-ho tries tracking Gi-hun using the implanted tracker, but it's too late. Gi-hun is already in a limousine being taken away. In the limo, the front man speaks to Gi-hun through a piggy bank speaker. He tries to dissuade Gi-hun from fighting the game's organizers, calling the players trash and claiming the games won't end unless the entire world changes. As they talk, Gi-hun's team follows the limo. To stop them, a sniper shoots the tires of the pursuing cars, and Jun-ho's vehicle is destroyed by a small bomb that blows out a wheel. Over the earpiece, Jun-ho informs Gi-hun that they are out of the chase for now. Gi-hun tries to shoot the limo's driver, but the partition window is bulletproof.
Did you really think you could end the game like this, with one little gun?
With no other options, Gi-hun asks to be put into the game.
A few moments ago, weren't you telling me to stop the game?
Your rich bosses will love it, won't they? The returning winner who came back to play. Make it all even more entertaining. Go ahead. Knock me out and take me to the game.
If that's what you want, then so be it.
He is gassed again, losing consciousness. As he passes out, the partition window lowers, revealing the front man sitting in the passenger seat beside the driver.
Player 456, welcome back to the game.
Jun-ho, undeterred, initiates Plan B. At the same time, No-yul arrives at the address she was given. She enters a shipping container filled with small stalls. She finds her designated stall, marked with the number 11, and changes into a pink jumpsuit. She puts on a triangular mask, signifying her role as an executioner, armed with a rifle in the game. This concludes episode 2. Watch the next part by clicking on the end screen, and let me know what you think about the second season in the comments.